Everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development and another episode of Sales and Cigars. So today's our guest is a friend and colleague, Paul Fuller. Paul's the head of revenue for Membrain. So we talk a lot about sales, surprise, and we talk a lot about Membrain and how that can help elevate salespeople, can help elevate sales management, and how it can help a CEO get a reliable and accurate forecast without a lot of extra steps from the salespeople. And why salespeople love it, sales managers love it, and CEOs can start to understand that framework. And Paul's got a pretty cool sort of way of looking at sales, right? Where he thinks of it as that there's a leadership component of it, like we're leading a prospect someplace and we're trying to get them to where they need to go. And then there's a service element, and that's where really we're trying to help them, right? That service piece, and then a wayfinding component, and that's how we take the journey. And he describes it a little bit differently, but that's the essence. So, go grab a cocktail, grab a cigar, strap in for another fun episode of Sales and Cigars. So, Paul, welcome to the program, as David Letterman used to say. Appreciate you taking some time.
For you, man, anytime. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's get this out of the way early. The hat. Pink. I see the little Membrain logo
There you
on
go, right there.
it. Can we talk about that right now so that people aren't confused and they're not paying
They
attention to us
they
later?
may be. I'm frankly, I don't know. I love the hat in that it gets me it's bright pink and it pops against the background. Like I like that. I really do. But then this is the only place I wear it actually, because I don't wear it. I don't wear it out like as a normal ball cap. I'm a hat aficionado, and I don't. Sorry, membrane creators that have created the hat, but I truly like it on Zoom. It's just one of those things. It gives me a nice little pop. People know me by the pink hat.
So I mean, it's good to be known for something. So one last question in a hat, and then we can go on. When you guys have membrane huddles and membrane meetings with the staff, does everybody have a hat like that?
No, actually, we
Or is that
wear
just
we wear large, like those mascot helmets. Looks a little bit more like. So everyone has their individual one, and yeah,
uh-huh.
it's we choose to be avatars instead of instead. No, there's one other dude, one
Okay.
other guy that loves to rock his pink hat. His name's Nick Massaro. We both,
Oh, the newer
yeah,
sales
yeah,
guy,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Nick, we both had the same reaction to it. It's like I love wearing it on Zoom. So, but no, usually
I could
people are
tell you,
Yetis with a big helmet on.
got it. I could tell you, I've had in the last couple of weeks, I've had meetings with uh, two other membrane brainers, three other,
Three,
three others.
okay, that's good.
Not one of them was wearing a pink hat. So I think we'll talk offline about who they
Yeah,
were, and
there's gonna have to be some
you can
disciplinary
tell me.
procedures. Well, yeah, we'll keep that. We keep that all in house.
So yeah, we'll go offline on that. So um, the reason I was excited about having you on the podcast was my relationship with Membrane. Um, I mean, my assistant asked me yesterday, like, how long have I been working with Membrane? And I, I couldn't remember, but maybe this will help you. Sean Meany, does that ring a bell?
It's been a while. Yeah,
Like 4 or 5
yeah,
years?
yeah, yeah. Sean's actually the first guy that introduced me to membrane.
Yeah. And I think he introduced me you a long time ago too.
Yep,
Before you were Mr. Big Hot Shot, head of revenue for the whole company,
with a
or the
pink
guy with the
hat.
pink
Yeah,
hat.
big hat shot with a pink
Yeah.
hat.
But I want to talk about membrane, and I want to talk about the what you're trying to accomplish with the go to market strategy with partners. But can you kind of just fill in to give people context about who Paul is and what your objectives are with um, with all the Vikings over there and
Yeah,
so forth?
yeah, yeah. I'll give you the medium story, right? But I think it's helpful to describe what it is we're doing. I was so I'll start back in 1976 when I was no 2007. I decided with like four other partners we were one of the first people to enter the sales as a service space. And when I say one of the first people is you could start to sell remotely really much more effectively starting about that time. And so we'd hire, train, and manage other sales reps for other organizations, and and that's not an easy gig. It's a great gig. It's a fun gig, but starting it in 2007, 2008 was
Starting anything back then was
yeah,
hard.
that was challenging. It was challenging. You know, it. I think we are actually blessed to do it at that time though, because it made us understand that it shouldn't be easy. All right, and and the people that started to go with us were the ones that actually said, okay, I want to invest in sales and I want to up my game. Even though there's a financial downturn, I still need to up my game and I need to figure out how to do it. And so we were able to grow it pretty quickly because there was a market for that, right? And so I was in sales before that. I was a salesperson. I did some software sales, and um, but this really started to be uh, a passion at that time. So I we did that. We did a digital marketing company, and then we had a CRM uh, portion of the business where we would create essentially implementations of Salesforce for individuals, and we got to be certified. So, fast forward a number of years and a couple of different stops, I ended up getting sick and had to get out of that business, and then came to Membrain. One of the main reasons is I just got so interested. I was actually working at a time as a sales consultant, and it was the system that I tried to build it for 10 years in the other business, right? Because it had everything that I needed to be able to replicate people and processes really, really well at an excellent level instead of having to rebuild it every single time in Salesforce, because that's what we
Salesforce.
had to do. We went in and we'd yeah,
Reprogram.
get a new instance, program the whole thing, modify it, get a new instance, program the whole thing, and write it. And Membrane just became like the to me, and I got involved with them initially back in 2019. It became this. Oh my gosh, I can look at this and I can look at a sales process and I can train people and I can coach people through one platform and I can then do that again and again and again. This really made a whole lot of sense. Um, so that's why I'm here. I mean, foundationally, that's why I'm here now. Is I think this is a tool that absolutely it takes the gifts of a salesperson and it helps amplify them through technology. It doesn't automate them through technology. It amplifies them, and I think that's a really big deal, right? How we help people with process through coaching, through to get better at their craft.
That's a really good description, and I appreciate the background because it kind of informs everybody that you've kind of had your own journey, but you're headed in this direction um, with membrane. So that's awesome. And the way I describe membrane to people, is it's a tool, a platform that allows salespeople to be more effective. And what I mean by that is if we want them to be doing prospecting, they can turn on prospecting module, go to their list, and they don't have to think. They can just do, right? It's all there in front of them. They don't have to go searching around. They can just go because everything is facing them, and they can become more efficient and more effective at the same time. And then if we want them to be looking at moving their deals along, their opportunities, their pipeline, they can focus on that without any distractions. And then if we want to look at, the strategic accounts that we're trying to grow, we can do that because we have three separate modules. that that allow them to focus on those processes and their separate processes. What's and it's almost like, oh, by the way, there's a CRM.
Yes.
And I think Marky's the one who kind of helped me see that. Um, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a CRM. And I just realized I never look at that because I'm always focused on the process that I'm trying to drive in that particular moment, or what we're trying to do with a client. Um, so there's been some iterations,
Hmm.
um, some advancements, with the organization, and I have, and I don't use this term lightly. Helix has two partners that we line up with. One of them is Membrain, the other one's Objective Management Group, and there's one thing that's common between the two is, and I looked at Dave at a conference a few years ago, and I'm like, you have the best of the best, but you're not sitting still. You keep making it better, right?
Hmm.
And he looked at me because he was sitting at his little desk with his computer in front of him and just, having a conversation, not looking at me like he always does. And and then he looked up at me and goes, I don't know how to do it any other way, Walter. And it like dawned on me that he's right. They're always trying to improve. They're always trying to refine. And Membrane is a partner for the same reason, because you're constantly trying to improve the experience and make it better and more efficient and more effective. It's if I had a complaint, it was like, hey, what did you guys just do? Like, I didn't know you could do that, right? It's like you could clue me in a little faster
Yeah.
on some of the things, but it's a really, um, the list of things that you're trying to improve is long, and you're knocking them out every 3 or 4 weeks. You keep adding new surprises to the tool bag. So, um, and what I'd love for you to be able to explain, because I described you as a partner to
Yeah.
Helix, um, and I, like I said, I only have a couple of those, and to me, it's not a word I use lightly. Um, and Membrane's a partner. So can you kind of describe how the partner relationships work, the levels, and where that headed?
Oh, absolutely. So I think I love my role. Like I think this is one of the most fun things I've ever gotten to do in my life. Um, and and the reason
You realize you're managing salespeople.
I am managing salespeople, but I also
Okay.
get to, which I love doing. But
Oh, it's fun, but it's also a challenge.
it's
So,
trying, but it's all about, well, we've talked about this a couple times, right? It's about, and it is about what Dave said there. It's like, I don't know a different way. It's about getting better. It's about continual refinement. It's about that journey, right? And taking a step. And it's not necessarily about the moment itself. I Winning deals is awesome. Like, I think winning deals is fun. It's great, but it's the journey and the profession that really gets me jazzed, right? Which is, how do I help someone continually grow and continually get better? And you know, I I see sales as a combination of leadership, service, and wayfinding. Leadership is, and I know I'm getting a little bit off the topic on our on the partner, but I will tie it back together. But leadership is essentially helping people understand and achieve their vision. Um, Service is helping people get what they need, regardless of regardless if they know they need it, right? And wayfinding is
mhm.
the ability to navigate, to do that together, collectively. And so when we are working with salespeople, we're helping them do that really well. We're helping them become better servants, better leaders, be able to navigate life more effectively. And I think that's the number of people that I've seen, um, and been blessed to see come out of rough situations, or situations where they're just starting to grow in the sales profession, and then their career is able to explode, and they're leading companies now, right? I Back to my, starting the sales as a service company in 2007. We did it with we started it with kids right out of college, right? And now some of them are, like I said, they're CEOs, they're VPs of sales, they're starting their own businesses, and you can directly
But that's
translate
the
it back.
and that's the reward. It's part of the reward. We all want to get paid. Let's not
Yes,
kid
yes.
ourselves. But the what drives us isn't the money. It's the watching somebody get better, somebody elevate, somebody grow to do something that they didn't think they could do,
Hmm.
right? And you knew they could, and to me, that's
Well,
the rewarding part. Watching that
yeah, and I
happen.
got a story for you. But he was my third person that I hired back in 2007, and it was my younger brother. I started a business.
Hmm.
Who do you hire? You hire friends and family, right?
Sounds like a good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. But it's my younger brother, and he started the job. And Bry, this is true. So you listen to this. It is true. He started the job every morning. He was so nervous he was puking in the bathroom. He was calling.
Nice.
He hated hated cold calling, and that was a big part of what we did in his particular engagement. Was he was doing a lot of cold outreach. Hated it. Hate everything about it. Like it just made him
Sounded
sick.
like he sounded like he
He
feared it
feared
too.
it. Yeah, absolutely feared it. Right. And so, and I got to watch this transformation with him over the course of the next. He's not in sales anymore, but over the course of the next year that he worked with us, where he went from fearing it and hating it to mildly being pretty good at it,
Tolerating.
tolerating it, to being excellent. And he's now a doctor, and he says one of the most formative, he's told me one of the most formative things in terms of how he's able to answer questions and diagnose things appropriately and be with people without being, intimidated, was that time. Right. He has told me again and again, like, I couldn't do this without that. And
But I'm going to stop you there for a second. It's a great story because in sales, we have a tendency, or at least in the improvement development space, we have a tendency to compare what we do to doctors about they just don't go in and like jump up on the table. We're going to do surgery on your knee today. We're going to run a couple of tests, ask you some
mhm,
questions, right? I've never heard that reversed where a doctor was able to appreciate his time in a sales seat, learning how to engage with people, ask them questions, create that rapport, bonding, and trust, right? Because that's just because they got a white
mhm.
coat doesn't mean we should trust them. Um, that's interesting. I've never heard that
I
before. That's
Yeah,
great.
and he tells me, like, I'm gonna see him here shortly. He tells me essentially every time you see him, and quite frankly, I mean, I'm biased, right? He's my brother. I'm highly biased. I love the guy, but he's really good at what he does, and it's highly that that formative time. And so that takes me back to the partnership program. I started this with me being loving what I do every day. I get to work with people like yourself, to develop amazing partnerships that essentially are helping us do that. Right? It's helping us take the amazing training, the amazing coaching, uh, the the process formation, the sales frameworks, and make it real for people. Right? And because I see sales as, leadership, service, and wayfinding, and I truly do, like, it's it's missional, right? It's purpose driven. For me, it's very purpose driven.
Mhm.
And then because we're able to see it that way, then working with companies, like, I get to geek out, I get to talk sales all the time, and then I get to actually help you make it a reality in a company. So Walter Crosby's Walter Crosby's training and coaching starts to become real through leveraging a system to make it more real, right? It starts to become, you start to actually look at statistics that mean something because you have a whole framework on which to build them, right? And that is powerful. It's game changing for communities, it's game changing for people, and it's game changing for companies. So that's what our partner program is about. It's about working with team members like you, really understanding what your business is, how we can help you impact that business, and then leveraging that impact for you to get out into the market with one of the greatest sales products I've ever seen in my life. So
It's really like um, a best kept secret, and I know George isn't going to like that, but um, going about it the way that Membrane does with partners, and you have your own direct sales
mhm.
going on too, um, and you're dancing in the same auditorium as some big Goliaths out there, um, and it's a wildly different product. It's customizable by idiots like me. Like I can go in there and um, make modifications, add processes, add conditions. I can do all the stuff um, myself. Um, where your big competitor, you got to have a coder come in and redo everything every freaking time you want to report. And you have the four performance metrics built into the program. Like we don't have to ask salespeople, and this is my story to a salesperson. Is like, look, you probably had to document what you did, send a weekly report into somebody, and then have to answer questions about that. And then you got to remember to do something, and you got a file someplace for your own little tickler files, and then you have to be able to report on what your forecast looks like, and you got spreadsheets, and you got all this mission gas to do this. If you just do it once in Membrane, you just record what you learned, whatever intelligence you gather, whatever you did once, all the rest of it's taken care of itself.
Mhm.
You don't even have to create a report. Like you get to tell the manager, like, go look in Membrane. It's already done. It's there. Go pull it up. Create a dashboard for God's sakes. Um, and it was fun today where I'm going to connect the dots. The goal setting tool, the Excel file that
Yeah,
Membrane
yeah.
has. So I use that, um, and I'm using it with a client who um, they've been using Membrane long enough that I can go look at that performance um, report and like, okay, sales cycle, average deal size, win rate, it's all right here, and it's like nobody can argue with any of the data because it's all right there. And what was interesting was I sent them their goal sheet for 23, and I sent them their goal sheet from 21 and 22. And which one of these do you see being more interesting? Which one of these do you see being more accurate? Which one of these do you trust? And by the way, which one has the highest revenue objective tied to it? And it was everything was a guess before because we didn't have the
Hmm.
data. And now it's like very achievable for them to hit their goals. And their goals are a lot bigger than what they used to be. And they have confidence that they're going to hit them
Yeah,
because of what they've accomplished. It just brings it full circle.
yeah.
And
That is freaking music to my ears, man. And it's exactly why, like, I always say there's different levels, right? There's sales methodologies. I take it down in three ways. I say there's a sales framework. I say there's a revenue framework is how I look at life, and that revenue framework, you know, captures everything from the number of leads that you're getting, the number of impressions that you have in market. So there's very high funnel in terms of brand, and then there's down. Then there's the sales methodology, right? I always think a sales methodology is you got to start with this overall framework, and then a sales methodology should fit as a part of that, right? And that's all the training and all the coaching and how to sell, right? But then being able to take that sales methodology and put it into a sales process, right? That takes that how to sell and how to have the conversation and how to work it into an actual process that's repeatable and malleable depending on the position. And once you start doing that, that becomes magic. And that's where that's what we did. back in the day of this other business, I don't mean to keep going back to that, but that's what we did there. We essentially created a training university, right? That it was we had a marketing and sales framework that we leveraged. Then we had a training university that taught the methodology. But then I would always have to go in and bastardize things and pull it out of uh, like the systems never did exactly what I wanted it to, and I always had to do
Mhm.
those reports and to the point of every single week we would have our reps. They'd create a paper weekly report. Then they'd go in and log their data in a separate instance of Salesforce that created a report based on that. And then they would create a monthly report that would roll everything up, right? Because we had to be more transparent than anybody else. We were outsourced, right? So we had to be the most transparent teams in the world with all these reports. But every single hour I took out of that we took to do those, like I loved the discipline of it. I love the fact that they had to do these reports, but you could do that same report by simply ensuring all of your activities and double checking and all of your processes are filled out in Membrain instead of having to do all these separate things. So it's actually the reason why I got so pumped about this. It's like, oh my God, I can roll up I can roll up my framework, I can roll up my process. I can do this and I can make it
And you can
repeatable.
customize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and every one, somebody wants to see something. There's another little metric that's important to that one because of the way they go to market. Okay, you just add that piece of data to the dashboard so people can go see it. It's a I hated doing reports. I work for a guy who it's like, you're going to do a daily report. And this was after I'd been there for 3 months and selling. And he's like, "What do you mean I'm going to do a daily report?" He's like, "You need to do a daily report so I can help you." Like, I'm not doing a daily report. It's a waste of time. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you're going to do that." And I'm like, "No, you're going to be disappointed." And so he'd come to me like at the end of the week, said, "I didn't get any of your daily reports." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So it worked. So I didn't do any, right? So the system was working perfectly. I'm like, "What are you going to do with the report?" And then he like showed me what he was sending to the other salespeople. I'm like, "That's not helpful. There's nothing there that's helpful to anybody but you feeling that you've accomplished something,
Mhm.
right? You haven't told them how to think about it differently. You haven't shared them, right? How to, and it wasn't exactly um, building rapport with him, but I honestly, I was because he was appreciating my honesty and he ended up making me sales manager and then other things on top of that. But because I could show him that it was not helpful. If he showed up in the room, it's like, "Hey, what do you got going on?" And you could have a conversation with him. Like, "I'm stuck on this thing." He was he could help you with understand the next two moves that were going to happen that you should
Mhm.
anticipate, right? That's where his value
Yep.
was. It's like that's what you should do. You should come to one of my sales meetings on a monthly basis, and we'll have something prepared, and you can talk about it and be able to share with the whole group, and we all can learn. Which he was happy to do. But the idea of having to do reports for I think any salesperson, so unless they're trying not to do real work, is a complete waste of time.
You,
Busy work.
you hit on something that I think is really important that is at the heart of I think a lot of what is confused is sales management. So hopefully I can explain this well in terms of my view, in terms of what it is. Like I am of the firm belief that everybody can view a dashboard, that, that everybody can view certain things about themselves, and that a good salesperson, like a proactive salesperson, is on top of where they think they are in their pipeline, right? The most critical thing that is really uh, really missing a lot of times in sales management right now is sales management is thought of as micromanaging and trying to get people to do those things. So the they, get your data in, get your numbers in, get everything in. So the sales leader and the CEO can be then confident in the numbers, right? And so a lot of sales managers spend their time pestering people for those reports and saying, hey, I need your data, I need your data, I need your data. Like I talked to one, it's a Fortune 1000 company that I won't mention, but essentially they went so far as to put a stick in place that if your data wasn't in by a certain point, all your commission was forfeited, right? And that's what the managers spent their time doing. Whereas,
Sad.
yeah, but so instead of saying, okay, I'm going to see you, sales manager, I'm going to arm you. You have a really tough job, right? And I am going to arm you with what you need just by a salesperson selling, going through a process. Maybe you need to tickle them here and there on this, that, and the other, and make sure they get stuff done. But that's not where and how can you then coach that salesperson to success? How can you spend your hour a week that you get with your salesperson diving into deals? Or how can you spend, if you have a whole team meeting, how can you then say, okay, yeah, here's our dashboards that everybody knows where they are in terms of their numbers. Now, where can we dive in and make a difference? Right? Where can we dive in and what are the things that are stopping you from being successful? And how do we change that? Like when you flip that paradigm, you gain success so much faster. And we keep on going back to, I'm talking a philosophical level, but we keep on going back to Membrain. That's one of the things that geeks me out about it, right? Is because I can say, all right, I have a methodology that I call vibe, right? And it's not perfect yet in the system. It's got work to do. I got work to do on it. But the cool thing is I can trust the fact I've trained the methodology. It's in there. It's now into a process. And I can trust that the team is going through that process. And then we can say, where are we getting stopped? And we could then tweak the process.
Find the friction points and iterate on those
Yeah.
friction points.
Yeah. And sorry, I get passionate about this stuff, Walter.
No, but that is a problem with sales managers that they don't spend the appropriate amount of time coaching. And some of that is on the company doing what you described where like, they're worried about the wrong thing. If they want a forecast that's right, getting the numbers to be like I made 14 calls and I had 12 conversations and I got one meeting, that's important. But if they could just capture that information as they're doing, then that will roll up and we don't need any more work from the salesperson. The sales manager can look at like, hey, you had 14 phone calls and you had those number of meetings, you only got one meeting out of that. What what happened, right? And then you can start coaching on situations that are appropriate for that salesperson in that moment. um, and what Membrane allows you to do is really solve the problem of a revenue forecast is often, well, it's the most common thing I hear that frustrates a CEO
mhm.
is I cannot trust my revenue forecast. Okay, why? I don't know. Okay, well, how long has it been a problem, right? And then you just do your discovery, right? This is easy. Um, so the problem is that everybody's in the pool, right? Anybody with a that fogs a mirror, anybody that opens an email now goes into a pipeline, and is you get all this crap in the
Mhm.
pipeline, and sales managers don't have the time to sort through that and help them see that. The salespeople are just like, I want a full pipeline, I want this to be there, and they leave deals sitting in there that should never have been there, and they're dead, right? That they should be removed, but they should never have been there in the first place. So we can put a scorecard in and create what I call hallowed ground for a pipeline. Let's make a pipeline where we can get our win rates up because we're not putting crap in, right? This is one way to solve your revenue forecast problem by not just throwing everything in there. And then we can manage something that is more reasonable. Membrane allows you to see, oh crap, that deal has been sitting in that field for X number of days. And X number of days is your barometer to know that's probably stalled.
Yep.
So now I can go poke the salesperson and say, hey, what's going on with Bob over here? Bob's ghosting me. Okay. So now we can have a meaningful conversation about what to do. Um, And he might have to go back into a prospecting process to nurture them back in there to see if there's something. The timing might have been wrong. That's fine. But let's not have crap in our pipeline to give us crappy revenue forecasts. Now, I went off on a rant, but it's for the same reason that Membrain allows the sales managers to do what they should be doing, spending half, if not more, of their time coaching salespeople. They shouldn't have their head buried in the CRM.
Yep.
They should be coaching. They should be coaching, and they should be coaching, and making it simple for the salespeople to do their
Yeah,
job.
and back to your point of coaching, like I think, and who you coach for the most part, right? You're coaching business leaders and CEOs. Is like how do a good I call revenue framework engages the CEO at a level that they understand it and know it, and then can be confident in the results and be confident being able to have discussions around it, right? There's very few, and I've worked with a lot. There's very few CEOs that are that confident in it, right? That can legitimately say, you know what? Yeah, I know my training program is uh, is churning out kick-ass salespeople, and I know that those kick-ass salespeople are radically disqualifying deals from their pipeline, right? I love that term, hallowed ground, right? That's beautiful. Um, like I'm only getting certain people into the hallowed ground, right? And I know exactly why marketing is driving specific leads into the pipeline. So therefore, it can only be into prospecting and into hallowed ground. Like they don't need to be on know every single detail, but the CEO has to have confidence in that process and in that whole framework. Because if you don't, every number is stress, right? Because you're looking at it.
Or every number is
Yeah,
bullshit,
yeah,
right? There's another way to
yeah.
look at
Which
that.
and to me is like it's bringing that absolute stress onto my business. It's like, okay, I know if I get that number from one of my one of my early mentors, and this is well before Membrain, right? But he was like, well, here's how I do it. I know each team player, and then I know exactly what they're going to tell me, and then I know what's the level of bullshit they're going to give me, and then I have my bullshit meter, and I say, okay, it is Sam. Sam is gonna. I can trust Sam's forecast at 45%. Okay, great. Ed, I can trust his at
Isn't that sad
60%.
though? That's sad.
I know that's how it operated, right? And taking that question mark out for people is awesome, right? I just think it's highly doable, it's executable. You said something earlier which was fascinating, and you that still happens. Like I was talking to that Fortune 1000 company, that still happens in this. They happen to use Salesforce and they pull it down into 3 different spreadsheets, and then they do a bunch of stuff to get a forecast that's reasonable, right? Um, I was talking to a company today that we were going through our process. I'm like, yeah, you can overlay this uh, prospecting process, and then we could put your pipeline, so it's really highly qualified. And they really needed account planning, like the old 3-ring binder account plans, that you had to do for everybody. That report that nobody read, right?
Right.
Um,
Right. It looks cool up on the
it's awesome.
shelf
I
though.
actually have a couple of them right up here that I'd show you, but and I wrote a lot of them, right? But they needed help with that and the ability to actually make it all actionable. And so that's what we do in account growth. And they looked at me and they said, well, this is going to be a major budget expenditure. I'm going to need to, probably take it through a couple of different committees. And I'm like, well, you didn't even ask me a price. It's like actually no. So what do you think? She's like 300,000, 400,000 for something like this. I mean, we're integrating I'm like, okay, I could
Oh,
charge you that if you want me to. That would be wonderful. It wouldn't be the right thing to do, but no, our standard onboarding is 5,000. She's like, what? No, I think you're low. I think you're way low. I'm like, No, actually, we could do this pretty well. So maybe I need some sales
Yeah,
training. I should probably close her at 400,000, but that would have been the right thing to do. It's one of those like,
no, not 400,000, but you're talking about the clear path.
yeah, yeah,
There might be levels of
yes,
that could be. We're going down a rabbit hole there, but what go back to account strategy, right? And those books and
yeah,
stuff. Um, what I had a team I was working with just a couple weeks ago about planning for 23, and and they're like, well, we're going to do all of these things, right? They listed off 7 things they're going to do with their top 20 targets, and they got all done with their presentations, and the general manager was all excited. I'm like, and they looked at me like, what do you think? I'm like, you're not going to do that. You're simply not going to do all of those things. It sounds great. It would be awesome if you did, but you're not going to do it. Well, sure we are. You've never even come close to that. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to do one of 2 things, maybe both. You're going to have a people strategy and you're going to have a product strategy. And you're going to focus on who else do I need to know at this organization to grow my share of wallet? And then what products can I put in that they don't know that we do? Because there's a client who been doing business with somebody for 10 years for one product, spending 100 grand once a year.
hmm
And this company buys everything that they sell, everything they sell. And like, have you ever talked to them about product X? No. Oh, okay. Because, well, because we don't know who that buys that. Oh, got a great relationship with the guy that's been buying all that stuff. Why don't you ask him to tell you who buys that stuff so you can, right? And they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, right? So uh, with account growth
hmm
module in Membrain, we can track those 2 or 3 things that will move the
yep,
needle substantially, a whole lot easier. And they're like, really? We could just focus on those 2 things? Yes. Doing the stuff that we've been doing, tracking our projects, right? Doing it the same way, but then we're just going to add these 2 pieces. And you're going to focus on those 20 accounts and you're going to grow your revenue 40% just by doing that. And they're like, that's going to be so much easier. I'm like, well, we could do it your way. Go do those 7 things that you're not going to
hmm
do. Um, but I mean, a long story to say, Membrain makes it simple so that it's executable
yep.
and measurable. And we can go look at it every quarter. It's like, hey, did we do the thing that we needed to do? No, we ran into this problem we didn't anticipate. Okay, so let's talk about that. Document that. Put them over here for a minute. We'll figure that. Let's slide these other 5 people in for this next quarter and deal with these guys, and we'll solve this problem. And then we can bring them back in. It's really that simple,
Yeah.
and the tools designed to make it simple. I'm I'm not trying to make this a commercial, but the partnership between Helix and Membrane allows us to offer much better, um, much better coaching, development, improvement for our clients. And I don't know,
Well, you,
it just makes my life
yeah, and you
easier.
said something there that is really powerful. I think if I was going to take something out of that, which is I'm taking a lot out of it, but if I'm going to sum that up, one of the things like look at sales theory in action, right? A lot of times when we're doing account planning, we do exactly that. We say we're going to do 47 things and we're going to do them across all accounts when the truth of the matter is we likely need to do 2 things, 1 to 2 things better, right? And track that relentlessly, but actually do them. Because that's the deal. Like I can't tell you how many presentations I've sat through, and again, this was earlier on in my career where you'd come to territory planning And I'm a big fan of territory. I love territories. I love having a territory plan. I love having that connective tissue and being able to do that well. I think that really, I think limiting scope is a very powerful thing to incent stronger relationships with people in the area. Because if your territory is the world, right, it's kind of tough sometimes to develop uh, good relationships. But I sat in so many of those meetings where somebody would come in and say, "Okay, these are the 70 things I'm going to do, and here's my PowerPoint." And that's how I was trained early on. That's just how I did it, right? Great. And then they made it sound really good because they're salespeople and they're supposed to make it sound really good, right? But some of the greatest questions that one of my mentors would ask when we were in those is, "Okay, great. I know this looks awesome. Now tell me what you're actually going to do." And you know, it was a great way of cutting through a lot of shit. But actually, then we've talked before together about the importance of accountability, right? But holding somebody accountable to what is the most powerful thing that you can be doing at any given time. Because I always said sales is about doing the right thing, having the right conversation with the right people at the right time to make the right impact, right? It's and and you as a salesperson can set yourself up for success if you are narrowing those options instead of making the options this big. Anyways,
That's why you need targets, and those targets need to be clear, strategic. You know how to talk to them. You got to be able to message it properly. You got to be able to differentiate your story from somebody else's, and it doesn't need to be what does Godin say? Seth Godin, the smallest viable
mm-hmm.
audience is what you need. Um, if you do a really good job in this particular client, because the number of targets vary from company to company and territory to territory, but with this particular group, 20 to 25 targets is all they need because that's where they get 80% of their revenue. So let's focus on finding those guys and let's focus on adding introductions. And when I sat through all those presentations, I just got to the end. They got to the end of it, all three of them being done, and I'm like, "This is great, super, great. I don't think you're going to do that." Well, yes, we are. And the question that I asked, that's similar to what your mentor was, is, "Do you want me to hold you accountable for all of those
That's
things?"
an awesome question. That's an awesome
And
question.
it was like deer in the
Yeah,
headlights. I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't think so. So here's what you're going to do."
yeah.
And then they're like, "Well, we can do that." Okay, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you talk about, well, we thought you wanted, like, no, I want wins. I want you guys to get better. I want you to hit your numbers. I want you to grow. And now they walked out of there feeling more confident that they could do it, right? Because they had big
Yeah.
numbers. And so, I mean, it's a great conversation, Paul. We could probably do this for, like, between you and Nate, we could probably do like an
Yeah,
8 hour
we
session.
could do a marathon. We could do a marathon. Well, invite me
Um,
back and we'll do another half hour.
Yeah, we'll do that. So the way I like to end these, because sales and cigars, and I'm curious, we haven't really talked about this. I'm assuming I know the answer, but does Paul have a relationship, past or presence with cigars?
I have a yes, I have a long and sordid history with cigars.
Ooh, sorted. That's good. I like
my
stories.
my my first has to do with combining a well. Do you call a Swisher Sweet? Is that actually a cigar?
Now, I'd ask you to get out of my golf cart
Okay,
if you
well
were smoking a
that's good
sweet.
because I won't smoke one. But that's what I thought a cigar was when I was a 16-year-old lifeguard. Uh,
Well, but that's a normal landing
yes,
spot for a 16-year-old
yes.
person. And then you make a couple of dollars, and then where'd you go?
Well, about that story, that didn't turn out so well. So I decided on the same day at the at the lake where I lifeguarded to throw in a big chew, and I didn't chew, so I threw in a dip, and then somebody had Swisher Sweets, and I'm like,
You
I'm
combine
gonna
those?
smoke one right after. And so I vomited mercilessly. It was terrible. It was terrible. So it was one of the more embarrassing moments I think of my young life. Um, and that kept me away from them for quite a long time. And
Go figure.
yeah, and so I don't have that. That was my introduction, and then I decided I was going to start trying them again. And this was more along the lines of when I was about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was like, okay, I think I can handle these things. And I went to um, it was the Arnold Classic is here in Columbus, right? It's this big show, and there
Mhm.
was a kind of a get together before that for a nonprofit, and Arnold came and spoke, and the governor at the time came and spoke, so it was like a big deal. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna have myself a cigar. They had a cigar hut over to the side. And they had really good ones, and I couldn't tell you what they were. So I had it. I actually enjoyed it, and then I wasn't wearing a smoking jacket like you are, right? So, but I was wearing a very like my favorite blazer, and I left.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I came home that night after a couple of drinks, and I threw the blazer into my closet where it laid for several days. And this, like, I don't. I walk back in there and like the blazer's ruined, my clothes are ruined, like just this cigar smoke. I couldn't handle it, so I was like, I think that's about where I end. I could be convinced to try one again, but I'm not a huge cigar smoker.
Yeah, well, that's two good stories. I like that. I appreciate that. I could tell you when I would go someplace, when I was in a service club, Kiwanis Club, we would have our meetings, and we'd like to have a good time after. So after we did our work, we would go to the red room and have cocktails and cigars, play cards and such, talk smart, and I would
Say words,
inevitably come
talk
home.
smart.
Yeah, solve the world's problems. Um, and I would come home and I would like reek of cigar smoke. And I'm not a big fan of cigar smoke the next day or stale smell. Um, so my wife would just be like, there. Before I reached the threshold of the master bedroom, there would be disrobe, go take a shower before I got to bed. And then she would like go take the clothes and throw them in the
Yep.
laundry, right? And I'd have to like make sure this is dry cleaning, this can go in, right? But she just put it in like this hermetically sealed thing, and so that we didn't contaminate the rest of the bedroom. And she's not wrong.
She's not. She's
There's
not
no.
wrong. No, that cost me my relationship. So I do have a relationship with good bourbon, but I don't know if you have that same relationship. But
I have 82
oh,
bottles
geez.
in
Okay,
my
so you
collection.
have a much better relationship than I do.
I have like I don't drink it by
Yeah.
myself. Like I was at a party a couple nights ago, and my friend's like, "Don't bring me anything. I got all the bourbon." Right? I'm like, okay, $1,000. If I bring you a bottle and you don't have it, you owe me $1,000. It's like, okay, other way around. All right. So I show up at his place, and he looked at the bottle. And he goes, "I don't have that." I know, not an idiot.
Don't make bets you can't win.
He's like, "How did you know I didn't have it?" I said, "Because nobody's got it. It's really, really hard to find in Michigan. Like I have a kid that goes to the University of Kentucky, so I have access." But he saw the look on his face. He's like, "But that's a really good bottle of bourbon." I'm like, "Yeah, it's the best bottle of bourbon you on your bar." So he put it up really high, so nobody else at the party could get it. It was comical, but anyway, good story, good conversation. It's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here at Sales and Cigars, and we'll have you back so we can talk a little bit more about sales and how Membrane can actually help everybody do a better job and elevate their
Cool.
game. So I
And by
appreciate
that time, I may have a
it.
different color hat. We'll see. We'll see
Thanks.
you.
Appreciate it.